Well, hello friends, I'm back now. We are beginning with our Egoic Lotus webinar commentaries program number 2. We had finished approximately, we had reached, beginning with page 200 of Esoteric Psychology 2, we had reached around page 203. It's not so easy to give the page numbers because I'm doing this in a different way. And we're beginning with the program number 2 at approximately EP 2, page 203. I wanted to go once more into this illustration of the Egoic Lotus. You may have noticed, and I tried to call it to our attention, that in the original book, A Treatise on Cosmic Fire, this kind of detail is not given. What is given is, let's see how we can go here. This is called chart number 9. What is given is actually incorrect and not in detail. You notice that the love petals appear to be the largest petals and are on the outside. Then come the knowledge petals, and this is a mistake. These that say L should say K, and these that say K should say L. The one thing that is important about this chart is that it shows us that one love petal touches the third subplane of the mental plane, another the second, just on the border of the second, and another the third. And thus it is with the knowledge petals, the third, the second, the first, and with the sacrifice petals, the third, the second, the first. Now, when these diagrams were first rendered a long time ago, I think a mistake was made because it does seem that a type of rotation is suggested from the first, well, this L should be a K, okay. Let's imagine it's a K. It from K1 to K2 to K3, and that tells us that the rotation is clockwise. And then this K should be an L, but notice again it would be like from L1 to L2 to L3, again clockwise, or the reverse direction of the normal zodiac. In other words, as if going from Aries to Pisces to Aquarius and so forth. However, the sacrifice petals, and these are correctly drawn in their place because they are the smallest of the 9, goes from S1 to S2 to S3, from the third sublevel to the second sublevel to the first sublevel, and these appear to be going in a counterclockwise order in the direction that the normal zodiac proceeds. Okay. Now, eventually the synthesis petals will also be turning, and they will be turning in a direction different from the turning of the all these other 9. So, from one perspective, it seems that all 9 turn in the same direction, which would be clockwise. But from the way this diagram is set up, it does appear that the sacrifice petals, which are more closely allied with the inner group of synthesis petals, is turning in a counterclockwise direction, because we would always move from the knowledge, sacrifice knowledge to sacrifice love to sacrifice sacrifice. So there's something to be sorted out there, but I just want us to be clear about how the diagram actually reads. Now, this is a corrected diagram from the way it was first rendered more than 20 years ago. And here we find that the knowledge petals are in the correct place. They are the outer and the largest group, and they have only 3 colors. The love petals are in second place, and they are 4, 5, and 6. They are also turning in a clockwise direction, so it appears, and they have 4 colors. But notice that whereas in the first program we used the original by mistake and not the corrected version, What I'm pointing to here was called petal 8, and this was called petal 7. So these two were reversed. We cannot begin with sacrifice love. We have to begin with sacrifice knowledge. And so this must necessarily be petal 7, then sacrifice love, petal 8, and then sacrifice, petal 9. So the direction implied here is a turning in the counterclockwise or proper zodiacal direction, the direction of what's called the reverse wheel. No indication is given of the sacrifice of the inner petals, innermost petals, which are called synthesis petals, and they are said to be of a lovely lemon yellow hue. And so we have the synthesis of knowledge, the synthesis of love, and the synthesis of sacrifice. They all seem to be centered in the central the central subplane, but perhaps that is not so. Perhaps in a way they do touch the lower subplane for synthesis knowledge, the middle subplane for synthesis love, and the upper subplane for synthesis sacrifice. Anyway, there are many details of this which remain to be filled in, but this is the diagram we'll be using in case there was any uncertainty. I had mistakenly pulled up the old diagram, but it did make the point that we cannot begin when all the other petals seem to begin with the knowledge sub-petal. We cannot begin sacrifice with the love sub-petal. It would not be consistent. Well, anyway, we are here at a point we are continuing talking about the names of the lotuses. We have discussed the highest name, at least given to us, the lotuses of revelation around the period of the 3rd degree and beyond, the lotuses with perfume around the period of the 2nd degree and beyond, the radiant lotuses around the period of the 1st initiation and beyond, and then some of these interim states where the lotus is on the point of opening. How does it say here? Lotuses wherein the flower is at the point of opening, and we've related that mostly to the outer tier when one of the minor initiations, not one of the great monastic initiations, is being taken. And then lotuses of closed or sealed condition, which are not unfolded but are being at least organized. So let's just say that the outer group of petals, the knowledge petals, are at least being stimulated and organized but not unfolded in general. And then the colorless lotuses, which suggest that the lotus form is there but no quality is built in, and the lotus in bud, which is the condition of complete folding in upon itself at the time of individualization, when the lotus is first created by the combined efforts of the solar angel and the monad, the human monad. All right, so now we're going to go on, and a little bit more is being said about the lotuses. They are grouped also according to primary color. Now, this is interesting when the word primary is used. And it could be a hint, because the primary colors are 3 in terms of light. They are the red, the blue, and the green, with some, variation there. But together they all make white light. And sometimes they say, the color is cyan for blue and sort of magenta-ish for red and green for green. But basically the red, blue, and green. And and sometimes the primary ray, I want to, let's see if I have that correct. Yeah, I do. Only I'm going to make it red so we can see against the background, and I'm going to make it in a smaller font. Yeah, make it a smaller font. So the primary ray is the monadic ray. All right. Let's see what we have here. Primary ray is the monadic ray. Okay, and all kinds of little hang-ups are occurring here. Excuse me, this has to be in British English. Don't know how that happened, but it did. Otherwise, the word corrector will not work. Primary ray is the monadic ray, and primary colors are red, blue, and green. So are we talking about the color of the monad, or are we talking about the soul ray color, how they are grouped? Because they are possibly classified in both ways. They are grouped also according to primary color, to subsidiary coloring, and this could be monadic. The word primary is so much related to monadic functioning, and subsidiary, this could indicate the color of the soul ray. They're grouped according to key or tone, because every one of the 7 colors has its appropriate tone. We've discussed this before, but one way of looking at this that HPB does is that C is related to Mars and thus to ray 6, D to the Sun or Vulcan and thus to ray 1, and the color orange, the red note, then orange note. Then the note E is related to the color yellow and to the 4th ray, Mercury, and F is related to green and to the 3rd ray, and thus Saturn, and G is related to the 2nd ray and to Jupiter, the major second-ray planet, and the note A that follows G is related to indigo, but in this case to the 5th ray and to Venus as the planet of the 5th ray. And finally, the color B, the note B is violet in color and related to the moon, but really veiling Uranus. We have gone over this before in the various discussions. So, okay. So the primary color may be the color of the monad, and the jewel in the lotus will reflect or express that color. The subsidiary coloring may well be the color of the soul ray, because there are so many different personalities. I don't think it's not that the Egoic Lotus will change color with every differing or varying personality ray. There are so many thousands of them according to the key and tone, and one tabulation is entirely numerical. Okay, well, we'll just have to take that at face value. What could that numerical tabulation be? It could relate simply to the ray number of the monad, the ray number of the soul, maybe the ray number of the personality ray at that particular time, and so forth. But if it's really going to pertain to the Egoic Lotus, I would think the important numbers would relate to the monad, well, maybe to the major monadic ray, as I've discussed, to the minor monadic ray, to the numbers associated with the spiritual triad, which are largely 1, 2, and 3, and then a subsidiary 1, 2, and 3, and then also to the ray of the soul, which is the same as the triadal focus, and especially, well, all the triadal permanent atoms are of the same ray, but the secondary focus in the triad gives us pretty much the ray of the soul. What the specifics are, we don't need to know at this time. It could only be speculation, but at least we understand that there is an organization here of these egoic lotuses, and a correct kind of classification according to the major energy constituents that lead to the creation of the lotus. It might be of interest to the students if we here pointed out that that in the Hall of Records, in connection with human egos, certain of the records under symbolical terminology keep a minute account of the following facts concerning each unit. So what we really come to understand here is that the lords of karma, let's see, yes, lords of karma need a detailed specifics regarding each unit, so that karma may be properly apportioned. So it is a very specific kind of, in a way, a third-ray department with all the details laid out. So the lunar record, okay, what does this deal with? It deals with all the lower vehicles and forms employed by the human monads, and concerns itself with their rate of vibration, the rate of vibration of every one of the vehicles, and its particular, I suppose, subplane focus, as each one of the subplanes is differentiated by a different rate of vibration, a different color, a different musical pitch. Their type, I don't know what is meant by the word type, but usually things are typed along 7 different lines according to the ray. Their key number, which may be a musical idea here, because every one of these vehicles vibrates to different musical factors, and there are 12 different keys really, but there are 7 major ones. The particular group of lunar lords who are concerned with those bodies, and I suppose they can be classified according to their development, higher or lower, and the detailed history of the elemental lives who construct the bodies. They have been associated with a particular incarnating soul for many lives. So these have been associated with a particular incarnating soul for many lives. And they are gathered and regathered continually. These elemental lives, not necessarily the tiniest elemental lives, which are atomic, but let's just say that the elemental life which constitutes the entirety of the lunar, any particular lunar vehicle, is gathered and regathered, associated with the incarnating soul at each point of that soul's re-immersion into matter. So I guess the important point here is to realize that records are accurately kept, and all that which we are demonstrating through these vehicles are carefully understood, and their constituents, the constituents of each one of these vehicles, understood in a detailed manner. This information is employed by the karmic official. It does sound like a great bureaucracy, doesn't it? But of course it has to be operating in a way that is functional on the inner planes, probably different from our own outer bureaucracies. This information is employed by the karmic official responsible for the production of a new set of vehicles at each incarnation in order to assist the working out of karma. So what you have here, you have a soul intention. Well, let's just say solar angel's directive, maybe soul intention, if the ego concern is sufficiently conscious on the higher mental plane, and karmic necessity. And all of these are working out for the production of the particular vehicles that any incarnating soul will use. The history of the lunar bodies is stored up in the permanent atoms, and this history can be read from there. Read. There's also the solar record, and this deals with the more permanent egoic vehicle. And notice that it's just simply more permanent because this vehicle of the monad is also temporary, but of much greater and longer duration. Okay, so it deals with the rate of vibration, probably of the different petals, what they have thus far achieved, the history of the petal unfoldment, when certain changes and elevations and unfoldments did occur in which particular incarnations, the history of any particular group of solar angels concerned with the formation of the lotus. And this is such an important statement. It shows that the solar angel is a group being. And maybe I should capitalize that, a group being, and let's just say there are more than one in each egoic lotus. And that is something that perhaps we have not been sufficiently aware of. There's an emanative situation going on there where one greater solar angel emanates a number of them, and they are each of them lesser beings than the original, but they supervise a particular province of the egoic lotus. And the activity of the Deva substance out of which the lotus is constructed, and this Deva substance is going to be found differentiated on each one of the subplanes. So let's just say that we sometimes read that the solar angel produces the egoic lotus out of its own substance, but the substance of the at least two of the higher mental subplanes is involved in this construction, and not only the substance of the solar angel. So there is Devic substance, which is its own, pertains to itself. It is not solar angelic substance, but the solar angelic substance builds, or the solar angelic energy builds that Devic substance into the form of a lotus, and the solar angel, or at least a portion of it, substands this Devic substance and holds it in the form of an egoic lotus, and later, of course, that form is dissipated with the final conflagration of the egoic lotus, and there is a separation of the substances. The solar angel, as a substanding entity, returns to the heart of the sun, and maybe some of them to the central spiritual sun, and the substance of the higher mental planes, which has been conditioned in a certain way, returns to its own reservoir. And also the elementals, which consist of this minute Deva substance, they are ready to move on into another category of impression, and will be on their way toward maybe entering the animal kingdom. Also, the record of group relationships. What are the different egoic groups that this particular egoic lotus has been associated with? There are different types of associations on the different planes, and if you look on page 39 of Letters on Occult Meditation, you'll see the different possible group relations, especially on the higher mental plane when the ego still exists. The egoic lotus still exists and has not been destroyed. There are some associations on the Buddhic plane, but maybe we could say that even when the egoic lotus has not been destroyed, its essence is a member of those higher groups. I think, to make a long story short, I will just go to that particular place in Letters on Occult Meditation, one of my favorite pages, because it seems to describe group relations on these higher planes. We can see that pretty well for the 35 groups and the 42 groups, the egoic lotus, as we understand it, will still exist. By the time, the 49 and the 42 groups, so subplane 3 and subplane 2, by the time we get to subplane 1, there has been destruction, and there are groups, but the egoic lotus is not necessarily involved. I don't think it is involved. This is a type of mental group in which the projected monad finds its place after the destruction of the causal body. Though even while there is an egoic lotus, there may be a destiny and a destination to be part of these 35 groups, as well as of the 28 groups on the Buddhic plane, and also the 21 groups on the highest level of the Buddhic plane, and finally on the Atmic plane, 14 groups. So well, and finally, the monadic group. All of us have our destiny as a projected monad, and we are part of these groups, even though we have not risen to focus within them necessarily. The day of our focus within them will come with the rising of the the rising of the consciousness which was focused in the Egoic Lotus. When the Egoic Lotus is destroyed, that consciousness will rise into these other groups, and probably sequentially, until at last the day comes when that projected monadic consciousness is focused in one of the 7 great groups, and maybe even later into one of 3 still greater groups. So it's the life essence which is confined in different kinds of vehicles, and the numbers of these vehicles are given: 49, 42, 35, 28, 21, 14, 7, and 3 as well, and then finally 1, or maybe 2 and then 1. Those are not given here. I hope that's somewhat clear. It has to do with our destiny, and where we as jivas, or we as monads in extension, will be focused at various times of our development, even after the destruction of the causal body. So this information is used by the master, who has made himself responsible for the stimulation and the growth of any particular series of egos. Notice that a master is not necessarily concerned with just one individual, but perhaps with an egoic group for which he has undertaken responsibility, and also by advanced egos who are consciously working with their group. So if we are sufficiently conscious as an ego to know what group we belong to, we can render clearer and more effective our various types of relations and our various types of activities that we are intended to carry out on the higher planes. Interesting, though, that a master is responsible for a series of egos. One thinks of Master DK and the ashram that he has been gathering around himself since apparently 1875, I think, is when he began to gather his ashram. Well, at least he became a master in 1875. Maybe the ashramic gathering occurred more around 1925 and following. But a group of egos was involved with him and is involved with him, and on the outer plane is probably a smaller group than on the inner planes. And so a master has wide responsibilities for a group of, I won't say personalities, I will say egos, monads in extension on the higher mental plane. Monads in descent, monads in immersion. The consciousness record, okay, that's still another one, and that's not a formal record, although it is related to form. This concerns the response of the indwelling entity to its surroundings, the response. In other words, how are we doing in terms of our sentiency, our registration, that which we know, that which we feel, that of which we are conscious. It deals with the utilization of knowledge by the knower, and is in many ways the most intricate and most lengthy of the records. Oh my goodness, well, these are just hints to show the kind of mind that is required to create and utilize these karmic records. He doesn't really say much here, does he? But there are, I think we have what we might call formal records. They have to do with vibration, degree of formal unfoldment, the particular types of solar angels that are involved in petal construction and maybe supervising petal unfoldment, Davic substance, so forth. And then the consciousness record. This is more about the qualities that a person is building in, and what the a person, I shouldn't call it a person, what the monad in projection is capable of doing when confined in various types of substance. How masterful, how effective is this consciousness? What does it register out of all the possibilities of what it could register? All right. Well, it's a lot to learn, is there not? You know, Master DK has given us the ABCs, but for us they sometimes seem like the XYZs, but we will gather the information as we need it. These records are mostly used by the Lord of the World and his pupils. Now, who are the pupils? We could say they are high initiates, and maybe shambolic beings. But to a certain extent, if the hierarchy is the ashram of the Lord of the World, then all the members of the hierarchy are pupils, in a sense, of Sanat Kumara, although those lives that are in Shambhala and are lower than the Lord of the World, I mean, and that's almost all of them, but there are certain representatives from other places which might be quite high in their development. But anyway, some of the shambolic lives are his pupils as well. So they're used by the Lord of the World and his pupils to ascertain information in connection with the planetary centers. So we might say larger areas of unfoldment are the focus of attention. And the development of the human beings tell these higher lives something about these larger areas of focus within the planet. Well, for instance, humanity is such a center within the planet, and all of these details can tell us something about the unfoldment of humanity. They are arranged in such a way that the entire record of any group, this is amazing stuff, you know. I remembered, well, I went through Cosmic Fire a number of times listening, and then also writing, and that took years, and then at the end speaking a bit. I could go through again and again. They are arranged in such a way that the entire record of any group, however vast and extensive, is embodied in 7 sheets of symbols, each containing 49 symbols. So what do we have here? 343, 7 times 49, 343 symbols. Apparently that number is going to be important. It comes out to 10 as we see. So 7 times 49 is 343. 7 times 50 would be 350. Okay. These sheets are changed and corrected once every 7 years and are precipitated on astral matter by an effort of the will by the Chohan responsible for the particular group involved. So these appear to be ray groups. Well, this is fascinating information, and it tells us about what lies beyond or behind the development of any egoic lotus. There's a tremendous science being exercised here and a type of knowledge far beyond our ken, and it is detailed knowledge. Let's just say that our development is known. Nothing is left to chance. We are well in hand, and every detail of every vehicle that we have is understood from a number of different perspectives. We simply use these vehicles. We are in them. We don't know how they are constructed. Solar angels, you know, are initiates of very high degree already from a previous solar system, already trained on Sirius. Their method of construction using the various devas, transmitting and building and manipulating and so forth, is far beyond our knowledge. But these are not chance vehicles. They do represent the entity which we are. They represent opportunity which is to be provided for us, and karmic liability, and they represent the different groups in which we find ourselves inwardly divided along qualitative lines. So nothing left to chance in this system of vehicles, and the great inner science of the high initiates is operative here. Okay, well, actually what I have done here is I've really dealt with what's given on page 202, the end of 202, and 203. What I did was I branched out to another document in which I had made some comments, and I pulled in some references from a treatise on cosmic fire as well. If I go on with the original document, which began at page 200 and goes to page 214, here is where we find ourselves at this point. So we could say here, returning from the related document discussed with amplifications from TCF, a treatise on cosmic fire. Okay, so we will then go on with this document. We do remember there are quite a few foundational documents that we need to look at before we can really put together all this information on the Egoic Lotus. If we have some, we could simply, if we wish, study the Egoic Lotus in and of itself, but it has so many interesting relations to the different aspects of a human being's development that we should look at these aspects as clearly as we can before we really start to put all the information together on the Lotus, because I'm interested in demonstrating how many different types of energies come together to create this unfoldment and how the different stages in the human being's life are indicated by the unfoldment. So it ends up to be quite a large and ramifying subject. It's of the nature of a synthetic subject. It maybe indicates a little bit of unfoldment of the synthesis petals, putting this information together so that a network of relations making a whole is demonstrated. Now, what we were really looking at here, let's remind ourselves, we're interested in the occult teaching on, the occult teaching on the soul, basically. So I'll make that a bit bigger, to emphasize it. We're interested in the occult teaching, right or wrong, that, and it's that we are at present engaged, and our premises and conclusions can be stated in the following propositions. So we looked at the first, the human being is a fragment of divinity. Every emanation here, every human being, every essential monad in extension, is coming in on one or other of the 7 emanations, which means that the vehicles surrounding it are basically conditioned by one or other of the 7 emanations. And it is necessary that each one of these monads in extension eventually shine forth in all exactitude of truth, which means to demonstrate its true inner name. And then we discussed the names of these 7 types. There are probably many more names, but DK divides it more or less into 7 categories. 3 of them dealing with the later phases of evolution from the time of the first initiation, and 3 of them with very early phases of evolution, and only one of them, number 4, all the interim periods of unfoldment, for which there are probably many names. And now we come, this is not done in the best outline form. This should be pretty A, B, and C, and so forth. But it's done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And now we continue with 5.5 on the original list. These souls cycling through various forms of life in the long evolutionary process arrive eventually at full self-conscious existence. They are souls in incarnation. They are deeply immersed in matter, and and they are not really self-aware, not understanding where they came from, but eventually they realize that their essence, well, their more real life is found on the higher mental plane, and still more real life on the monadic level. So they come to know who and what they are, despite distracting preoccupation with the outer forms. But eventually the nature of the outer forms, when properly studied, reveals to every human being what he is essentially, because the outer form is basically constructed, built upon what one is in essence. So they become fully self-conscious, a full self-conscious existence. And by this we mean that they are self-determined, self-conditioned, and self-aware, self-determining. They have the will. This is all related to the sign Leo. Notice the connection. Self-determination, self-conditioning, and self-aware. So all these abilities or capacities related to the sign Leo. They are also conscious of and responsive to their environment. So they have this outgoing sentiency as well as an inner self-awareness. This is what occultism says of the soul. We just looked at what the conventional psychology or different types of psychology says of the soul, all the way from believing it doesn't exist to a statement which is much nearer the truth. Once this conscious awareness is achieved, then progress becomes more rapid. Presumably, people of our nature have entered this stage of a more rapid development. We have completed, the majority of our lives as a human being. We are at least approaching the first initiation if we haven't taken it. And so basically 99% of the process is already experienced. And because of our increasing knowledge, we can cooperate with the intended evolutionary development. So I'll put that down. We can cooperate with the intended evolutionary development. And I think I should put that in a lower, more like 14. Don't you think so? I try to keep these fonts somewhat in order, but it's pretty hopeless when one is going through all this material. It should be borne in mind that many human beings are not thus aware. I would say the great majority of human beings at this time are not thus aware. They have not really worked very much in the second tier of petals in which awareness of the pairs of opposites comes home to them. They may be quite intelligent human beings, but they may be still working in the hall of ignorance, i.e. ignorance of the pairs of opposites, and especially of the higher of the pairs of opposites. The groupings which arise out of this awareness, limiting our ideas entirely to those within the radius of the human family, can be expressed as follows. You realize DK's knowledge is so vast he has to circumscribe the extent of his knowledge so often in order to make it comprehensible to us. So we are consciously aware of our environment, consciously aware of ourselves. We can progress more rapidly, and there are groupings that arise out of this awareness. And now we are going to enter I think I'm just going to read these at first, and then I'm going to develop the ideas. Reading them at first will give us a sense of these 10 categories, which are very important categories, because every one of us is going to find himself or herself in one of these categories. I mean, we are already in so many groups. We are in human groups, we are in soul groups, we are in personality groups, we are in monadic groups. So many of these groupings in which we are participants, we are not aware. Of so many we are not aware. Let me first read this so we get the sense of it, and then in the next program I will develop these ideas, because I think I have something here. Yes, I have the development of these ideas, and I want to expand upon them. Much of this material was undertaken in various classes that I taught. Hence all the different colors. I tried to discriminate the various groups and their contribution by color. But it's been so long, I think I've forgotten which groups contributed to which color. But first I will go through just the reading, and let's just see what we can think as we do so. So, number one, the souls who live but whose consciousness sleeps. They are the dormant human beings whose intelligence is of such a low order, and their awareness of themselves and of life is so dim and nebulous that only the lowest forms of human existence come into this category. Racially, nationally, and tribally, they do not exist as pure types. But occasionally such a person emerges in the slums of our great cities. They are like a throwback and never appear among what are called the natural savages or the peasantry. Number two, the souls who are simply aware of physical plane life and of sensation. See, we're going to want to take these categories, and when we study the unfoldment of the lotuses and of the petals, we're going to want to assign the different stages of unfoldment to these different categories, if they can be thus assigned, and oftentimes they can. The souls who are simply aware of physical plane life and of sensation. They are slow, inert, inarticulate, bewildered by their environment, but they are not bewildered, as are the more advanced and emotional types, by events. He's discriminating environment from events. They have no sense of time or of purpose. They can seldom be trained along any mental line, and they very rarely exhibit skill in any direction. They can dig and carry under direction. They eat, sleep, and procreate, following the natural instincts of the animal body. Emotionally, however, they are asleep, and mentally they are totally unawakened. These two are relatively rare, though several thousands of them can be found upon our planet. They can be recognized with a complete incapacity to respond to emotional and mental training and culture. So it's almost like early Lemurian development. But we will discuss it further. Number three, the souls who are beginning to integrate and who are emotionally and psychically alive. In them, of course, the animal nature is awake and the desire nature is becoming rampant. These people are to be found in all races to a small extent, and a number of them can be found among the Negroes. You know, we can see that this is written in the older days. There was an older language. Maybe some of this language is not acceptable to the modern reader, but one will have to realize, written 80 years ago in the prevailing understanding of the time. It can be found among the Negroes, which race contains a large number of those who are today relatively children. Of course, also great advanced souls who are working through that race. These are child souls, and though the mental development is there and some of them can be trained to use it, the preponderance of the life emphasis is entirely upon the physical activity, as it is motivated by the desire for satisfaction of some kind and by a shallow wish life or desire nature, almost entirely oriented towards the physical life. These souls are the modern correspondences to the old Lemurian cultures. So, the first two didn't even make it as far as, let us say, the more developed Lemurian cultures. Remember that discipleship was achieved in later Lemurian days by some. Number four, the souls who are primarily emotional. The mind nature is not functioning strongly, only rarely does it swing into activity, and the physical body is slipping steadily into the realm of the unconscious. In every race and nation there are millions of such souls in existence. They may be regarded as the modern Atlanteans. So many, many. Number five, those souls who can now be classed as intelligent human beings, capable of mental application if trained, and showing that they can think when need arises. I guess they're not the prevailing thinkers. But they are still nevertheless predominantly emotional. They constitute the bulk of modern humanity at this time. They are the average citizens of our modern world, good, well-intentioned, capable of intense emotional activity, with the feeling nature almost overdeveloped and oscillating between the life of the senses and that of the mind. Well, and the feeling nature is in the center. They swing between the poles of experience. Their lives are spent in an astral turmoil, but they have steadily increasing interludes wherein the mind can momentarily make itself felt and thus, at need, effect important decisions. These are the nice, good people who are nevertheless largely controlled by the mass consciousness because they are relatively unthinking. You see, this is still the hall of ignorance. We have to understand that. We haven't gotten out of the first three petals. They can be regimented and standardized with facility by orthodox religion and government and are the, quote, sheep of the human family, not the goats, right? Okay, reading this is important to get this overall picture, and then I will take it apart, analyze it, and we'll see what some of the implications may be. 6, the souls who think and who are minds. They are steadily increasing in number and gaining in power as our educational processes and our scientific discoveries bring results and expand human awareness. They constitute the cream of the human family and are the people who are achieving success in some department of human life. They are writers, artists, thinkers in various fields of human knowledge and aspiration, politicians, religious leaders, scientists, skilled workers and artisans, and all those who, though in the front rank, yet take ideas and propositions and work with them for the ultimate benefit of the human family. They are the world aspirants and those who are beginning to get the ideal of service into their consciousness. Well, this covers quite a span. In this category, there are those who are less developed and more so. Number 7, those, let's see where we are in terms of time here. Well, pretty good. Those souls whose sense of awareness on the physical plane is now of such an order that they can pass on to the probationary path. He seems to be discriminating the path of aspiration here, the aspirant from the probationer. It is a fine distinction. They are the mystics, conscious of duality, torn between the pairs of opposites, but who are yet unable to rest until they are polarized in the soul. These are the sensitive, struggling people who long for release from failure and from existence in the world today. Their mind natures are alive and active, but they cannot yet control them as they should, and the higher illumination remains as yet a joyous hope and final possibility, though certain types of illumination are possible on an irregular basis. Number 8, souls whose intelligence and love nature is becoming so awakened and integrated. Notice those words, well, I'll describe later, that they can begin to tread the path of discipleship. They are the practical mystics or the occultists of modern times. I think, many find themselves here. Those who are, students of the Blue Books in an earnest way may find themselves here. Number 9, the souls who are initiate into the mysteries of the kingdom of God. These are souls who are not only conscious of their vehicles of expression, the integrated personality, and conscious also of themselves as soul, but they know, past all controversy, that there is no such thing as my soul and your soul, but simply the soul. So this is really a step upward, isn't it? They know this not only as a mental proposition and a sense reality, but also as a fact in their own consciousness. And I think this, when you look at that great old Atlantean chant, where the initiate is basically saying, swept am I by the universal life, and as I sweep upon my onward way, the way of God, I see all lesser energies die out. And then he says, I am the one, I God. I am the form in which all forms are merged. I am the soul in which all souls are fused. I am the life, and in that life all little lives remain. Finally, we come to number 10. These souls, the souls who have achieved release from all the limitations of the form nature, and dwell eternally in the consciousness of the one soul, withdrawn from identification with any aspiration of the form life, no matter how highly developed. They can and do use the form at will for the purposes of the general good. They are the masters of life, the perfected adepts. And it is these categories that we are going to discuss in their own right, and then later, since we will have discussed them, when I refer to them in relation to the petals, we will all understand more clearly. Obviously, we're dealing with unfoldment of the petals from the very first petal all the way to the 9th petal and to all of the 12 petals, including the synthesis petals, and to the destruction of the Egoic Lotus itself, because the category number 10 requires, if you're going to be a master of life, all of the 12 petals have to be destroyed, and the jewel in the lotus, the central fire, elevated into the triad and beyond, toward the monad. So that will be our next task. What we can say here is that we are going to, we'll put it here like this. We'll say that we will end Masters of Life. Higher than that, we need not go. Okay, we will discuss that later. But we're going to say that this is the end of Egoic Lotus webinar commentary number 2, and EP2, page 207. And then we'll go back to a document which I have annotated in various ways over time, and we will see whether more discussion, well, certainly will be more discussion, is possible. All right, well, the hour is getting on here, so why don't we close with the great invocation. It's a good way often to end some of these programs. Okay, let's do that. And yeah, here we are. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Okay, friends, we will go on with program number 3 shortly, probably on my tomorrow. What I have here is an opportunity to collect what I've been teaching for maybe 20 years or so, maybe more actually, maybe some almost 24 years really, 2 Jupiter cycles, and hopefully to present it in such a way that it creates something of a synthesis in our minds and a growing awareness of our unfoldment in our consciousness. So I'll go on to program 3 shortly, and let us persist. Okay, see you shortly then. Bye-bye.